Coming up, a bison herd faces challenges near the Missouri River, and our special report at the Crossroads takes us to oil fields in North Dakota. Plus, get ready to rock your mocks to Indigenous Big Band music. I am Aaliyah Chavez. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
Arizona PBS is proud to support Indian Country Today. For 6 decades, we've provided television programs and now digital content. But we go beyond that, sending outreach teams across Arizona, offering workshops in language and literacy, family engagement and community outreach, and supporting tribal communities with early learning and school readiness resources. Join us at azpbs.org.
Thank you for joining us. 1 million data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention will soon surpass 1 million deaths from the coronavirus pandemic. Epidemiologists say it is difficult to know just how many of those deaths are from Native people. This is because of undercounting or confusion in data when choosing a person's race and ethnicity. ICT aimed to tell the stories of Indigenous people who died through our Portraits of the Pandemic series. In December 2020, Elvia Rose Ramirez was planning to graduate high school. She contracted COVID-19 and never recovered. She was just 17 years old. In November 2020, Thomas Butch Sanders died from COVID-19 complications at age 74. He was described by his family as having an infectious smile. In March of 2021, Robert Begay died at age 63 from COVID-19, and his daughter Faith said he was the best dad ever. In California, the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians has elected a familiar female leader. On Tuesday, Lynn Valbuena was sworn in as the chairwoman of her nation's tribal council, making it her 5th non-consecutive term in the position. Valbuena says she has a focus on serving her community. She began a nearly 50-year career as her nation's first housing commissioner, and she's also been elected vice chairwoman and secretary-treasurer. Latasha Casas was re-elected as treasurer, and Lorena Bolden will serve as the council's member at large. Staying in California, on Monday, the University of Southern California dedicated a center to a prominent Native leader. The center is now known as the Dr. Joseph Medicine Crow Center of International and Public Affairs. Medicine Crow became the first citizen of the Crow tribe to earn a master's degree. He earned that degree in anthropology after graduating from USC in 1939. Medicine Crow served in World War II and was also a war chief of his tribal nation. In 2003, he received an honorary doctorate degree from USC. Medicine Crow has also received a Presidential Medal of Freedom by former President Barack Obama. He died in 2006 at the age of 102. Next fall, USC says 2 students will receive a scholarship named after the Crow leader. Muskogee Creek citizens are showing up in a big way, all in an effort to reestablish their presence in their original homelands. Earlier this week, citizens made their way from the nation's territory in Oklahoma to the town of Oxford in Alabama. Together, they put on a 2-day festival called We Have Come Back. In 1836, the nation was forcibly removed from its lands and made to walk to Oklahoma during the Trail of Tears. At the festival, citizens told stories of their tribal nation, sang hymns, and reflected on this troubled history. A jungle city in the Amazon is hosting its first Indigenous fashion show. The Voices of History event is completely organized by Indigenous groups who want to showcase aspects of their culture. This Native-inspired show was filled with rich cultural ways of the thousands of Indigenous people who live in the rainforest. A total of 37 models from different tribal nations strutted a runway that was decorated with traditional patterns and images. Designs from 31 one Indigenous stylists included colorful dresses made from natural fiber and native painted graphics. During the event, people spoke about major land protests.
The fight for the land is happening in Brasilia at the moment, but also here. In the fashion world, it is important to fight, to raise awareness.
In total, 9 different tribal nations were among the groups featured in the show. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. Coming up, an Indigenous Big Band premieres its work, and we take you to the oil fields of North Dakota. But first, bison are dying from a mysterious disease. Stay with us. Mycoplasma bovis. It's common in cattle but rarely deadly. For buffalo, it's taking a toll. Last month, the New York Times reported on Fred Dubray's bison herd, saying this disease has no cure. Fred has been ranching on the Cheyenne River Reservation in South Dakota for 30 years. Welcome, Fred. The Agriculture Department called attention to this in 2013 as an emerging pathogen. Where are we today with the research?
Well, unfortunately, since 2013, when they called attention to it, they haven't done anything, which was kind of shocking to me because I thought for sure they probably did a lot of research. And so I started inquiring around and nobody really knows anything about it. And so I'm not sure why they dropped the ball at that point, but it just seems like nothing has been done. And so talking to all the veterinarian scientists that I can, there's just very little known about it, and it really needs a lot of research done. So.
Walk us through how you noticed that something was wrong with your bison herd. What happened?
Well, I noticed that I was having some buffalo that were crippled, and I had never seen that before because, they'll fight around a little bit, and some of them will get a little bit banged up a little now and then, but they come out of it right away. But we noticed that there would be some that just seemed to be getting worse and worse and getting more crippled. And so I kind of started paying attention to it. And then I noticed that a couple died from it. And so I took one into a local veterinarian, and he took some samples and sent it in and said, this is what it is Mycoplasma bovis. And I didn't really understand anything about it, didn't know a lot about it. And I'd heard that I'd heard about it, but I didn't think that I had anything to worry about because I thought it was mostly in feedlots and stuff like that. And my herd is a free roaming herd that has very little contact with us. I try to keep hands off as possible. So I didn't think it would be ever anything possible to get into my herd. And then when it did, I thought, boy, this is really a big problem because if it can get in my herd, it can get in any herd.
That's a great segue into my next question, which is how many bison you've lost because of this disease, and how does that affect you?
Well, I've lost somewhere around between 40 and 50% of my herd, probably my breeding herd, and it affects mostly cows and breeding bulls, big bulls, and so which is the main source of your herd dynamics. And so it's really devastating. And I've heard that, it can lose anywhere from 20% to 100% from other people that have had it. And right now there's about 25 herds throughout the country that are infected with it. And I'm not sure, what kind of losses other people are having, but that's about what I've lost.
So often we hear from sources talking about how climate change is making a real toll on not just the weather, but things like animals and our environment. So I'm wondering if you think that climate change has anything to do with this disease.
I definitely think it does because, from everything that I've tried to find out about it, a lot of people say that they believe it's drought related because any time that it seems to come around, it seems to be during a drought and during real dry part of when the country is really dry, So, but nobody really knows for sure, but that just seems to be prevalent when it is there are big outbreaks of it. So, and I think, just looking from, my standpoint and my herd, it has been really, we've been severely dry here in a severe drought. And, the grass, has been affected. It was so brittle that you can break it off when you walk across it, I mean, that's getting pretty dry, and I've never seen it this dry before. So I'm pretty sure that has something to do with it. I'm not sure exactly what. And like I said, nobody understands really where it comes from. If it comes out of the ground, can come in there. It's already in the buffalo. So those are the kind of things that really need to be studied to find out. And unfortunately, it just hasn't been done yet. So I'm hoping to bring some attention to it so that when things start to happen and people can figure out, at least hopefully how to prevent it or how to deal with it at least. But right now, there's just no answers at all from anywhere.
Fred, I can hear while talking to you that these bison really mean a lot to you. Can you tell us how much they mean to you and your family and, what it means to have these bison who are sick?
The bison are our livelihood, which is, pretty vital part of our, that's our operation, but it goes way beyond that to us because, I've been involved in bison restoration back to Indian country for, a lot of years. And because in our tribe and a lot of other tribes, that's a set cornerstone of our culture. And especially for us, I said that's where we get our, our values from. That's our, they say that we and the bison are one and the same. Whatever happens to them happens to us. And it's been that way since time immemorial. And so that was why it was important to me years ago to start the restoration effort, not only to our tribe, but to all other tribes that have that kind of cultural relationship. So, and looking at the climate change and all the things that are going on, that was my way of trying to deal with it, looking at this is probably real important to this part of the country in North America. It was probably one of the biggest, millions of buffalo roamed here, and that was the leading mammal that was on this part of the world. So that, and when they got devastated and all the buffalo numbers went down from millions and millions of them down to 100 at one time, they almost became extinct. And so I looked at that and thought, our tribe can't even exist without buffalo. That's how important they are. And so that's what started my restoration effort. And so to answer your question, I guess to me and my family, that's what it means. I mean, they're everything to us. And to see them get sick like this is, it's really devastating. It's hard to take because they're almost like family.
Well, Fred, thank you so much for bringing this to our attention and for sharing your story today.
Thank you very much for having me.
An all-Indigenous 16-piece big band is making its premiere performance next month in Olympia, Washington. It's co-directed by Delbert Anderson, Danae on trumpet, who we featured on the ICT Newscast, and Julia Keefe, who joins us today. She's from the Nez Perce Nation and a jazz vocalist, actor, activist, and educator. Welcome, Julia.
Thank you so much.
So, 16 Indigenous musicians. How did you make this happen?
It was a big outreach effort. Delbert Anderson and I have worked together in the past, and we've become really good friends. And two Indigenous jazz musicians coming together, we saw that as something really awesome. I never knew that I could connect with another Indigenous jazz musician. And so Delbert and I started talking about this big band project, like how cool would it be to put this together. And so I applied for grant funding through South Arts, and I won that funding, which was awesome. And then came the big outreach effort. We put it out a call on social media to try to get in touch with as many people as possible. I reached out to some of my Indigenous musician friends who are in different genres, like, okay, do you know any Indigenous jazz musicians, and can you give me their contact information? And so it really was just sort of this like big outreach effort to every corner of the US and Canada, and down into the Caribbean. And it's really exciting because we just have there was such an influx of people who were interested, who were excited, who wanted to be involved. I mean, I had enough people reach out that we could put together a couple of big bands. But a huge part of this was to create a community of Indigenous jazz musicians outside of the big band performances, where we could all connect and support each other and hire each other, and also do peer-to-peer mentoring and other outreach opportunities. So it's been really exciting.
It sounds really exciting. And of course, this will premiere next week. How are you feeling going into it, knowing that you've put a lot of work into it, but knowing now that other people are going to be able to see it and enjoy it?
I'm really excited about it. It's as you can imagine, putting together a big band from scratch can sort of be like a logistical puzzle, but we have had so much fun. Delbert is bringing in some of his original music. Other members of the band, like when they came in, they said, I have compositions that I'd really love to share with the band. So we're featuring a lot of original music that's inspired by traditional songs from the ancestral backgrounds of each of these musicians. But we're also going to be highlighting some of the music of Indigenous jazz musicians from the past. So that includes Mildred Bailey from the Coeur d'Alene tribe, who was the first woman to sing in front of a big band in the late 1920s. That includes the music of Jim Pepper, Oscar Pettiford, Charlie Parker was Indigenous. There's a wealth of Native blood in the veins of jazz. And so what we really wanted to do was honor that lineage and that tradition within this all-American art form, but also showcase that we as Indigenous people are active participants in this art form currently. And we also have a really, really bright future as Indigenous jazz performers going into the years to come.
Well, Julia, now that we have you here, I, of course, want to give our viewers a chance to listen to a song. So let's listen to Hard-Hearted Hannah.
1, 2, 3, 4. In old Savannah, I said, Savannah, the weather there is nice and warm, the climate's of the southern brand. But there is one thing I do not understand. They got a gal there, mighty pretty gal there, who's colder than an Arctic storm, got a heart just like a stone. Even the Iceman leaves her alone. They call her Hard-Hearted Hannah, the vamp of Savannah, the meanest gal in town. Leather is tough, but Hannah's heart is tougher.
Julia, tell us about that song.
That song, it's such a funny tune because it's obviously the male perspective of this woman who is, Hard-Hearted Hannah, the vamp of Savannah, GA. And I had learned that tune for another big band back in Spokane. And, I always loved just like singing really loud and being really like just brassy with it. But for this particular recording session, I started thinking about, in light of everything that has happened since the time that I've learned that tune, we have the Me Too movement, we have missing and murdered Indigenous women, we have, as female humans and female bodies in this particular country, I think women get a bad rap for just putting up boundaries and, just wanting certain things. So at the very end of this tune, I added, she just wants equal pay. She's hard-hearted Hannah. So I like to sort of take it more in the the feminist side of things. But I love this song. It's a great old standard from the 1920s, and it was really fun to record and to sing.
Well, Julia, best of luck to you on your show, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
ICT's At the Crossroads special report is taking a look at the state of economy in Indian country. In North Dakota, we're talking about the oil industry. Joining us today is Jody Rave Spotted Bear. She is the founder and director of the Indigenous Media Freedom Alliance. She reported the story Boom or Bust, Oil Industry Hits North Dakota for Buffalo Fire, which is the Alliance's independent digital news website. Hi, Jody. Great to see you.
Hi, Aaliyah.
So start us off by describing just how big of an industry the oil industry is in North Dakota.
Well, North Dakota is the second largest oil play in the United States. Since the Bakken and Three Forks oil shale boom began, with our first oil leases being signed in about 2007, it has catapulted North Dakota to being the second largest producer. And there are more than 16,000 wells that have been drilled during that time period in Western North Dakota. And 20% of that production is taking place on the Fort Berthold Reservation where I am based.
And that was a big part of your story, was specifically looking at how the oil industry has affected the 3 affiliated tribes. So tell us what you found there, or what you didn't find, I should say.
Well, I guess that is part of the story, what I did and did not find, in that I have really set out in agreeing to be a part of the series with INN and ICT to look at job development since the oil boom began. It seemed like the elephant in the room and the story that needed to be explored. And I will say that I was not sure what type of information I would get, but it seemed like it was pretty much innocuous information. And the likely place to get information about jobs and the oil development and its impact on Fort Berthold would be to go to the Tribal Employment Rights Office, which is controlled and directed by the 3 affiliated tribes. And I guess that really turned out to be part of the story, was a lack of information and the unwillingness of the tribal council to release any of those numbers. But we still had a lot of good anecdotal stories and people who are impacted by the Tribal Employment Rights Office and the oil industry.
One of the stories that surprised me in this reporting was that there are actually Native families who have profited off the oil industry and are doing quite well for themselves.
Yes, that might be a common misperception that, all families or individuals are benefiting to some degree by oil royalties that are gained and earned off of individuals' land, but not. I would say the majority of people aren't benefiting from that, but there is a good chunk of tribal members that do receive oil royalties. And then, of course, with one family member receiving them, being generous people that we are at 3 affiliated tribes, a lot of that wealth does get distributed not only to your immediate family, but to your relatives.
Jody, we only have a short time left, but I'm really curious if there was anything that surprised you in this reporting.
Well, again, no surprise that when I went to the Tribal Employment Rights Office to ask for this information, it was not readily available. And that really underscores the work that we're doing at the Indigenous Media Freedom Alliance, and that is to advocate for open records and freedom of information, not only in our tribe, but throughout Indian country, because the majority of tribes have ineffectual freedom of information and press freedom protections in their tribal constitutions.
Well, of course, our viewers can learn more by going to our website and reading your story at IndianCountryToday.com. Jody Rave Spotted Bear, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For more news, visit IndianCountryToday.com. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives. I am Aaliyah Chavez.
Times you got to take a stand, just because you know you can. Oh, you got to run, you got to run.